Tom Aspinall now holds the record for the longest tenure as an interim champion in history.
That is bull, innit? That is not something that I wanted.
Tom's main goal is to face Jon Jones, but for one reason or another, whether Jones is avoiding the matchup, negotiating for a bigger payday, or waiting to see if Tom loses before they meet, the fight remains off the table. And Tom's had enough of waiting.
I've had enough. We either need to fight or I need to move on and do something else.
Jones is squandering what could be the peak years of Aspinall's career. In a fast-paced sport like this, it's not just time slipping away. It's costing Aspinall money, his legacy, and the rewards of all his hard work.
People can call me a duck and a chicken. I'm gonna go home and cash a massive...
This is how Jon Jones might be derailing Tom Aspinall's rise in 2025. Right now, there's one matchup MMA fans are craving above all others: Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. It's not just about unifying the heavyweight title. It's a clash of styles. Aspinall represents a new kind of heavyweight, the likes of which the sport hasn't seen before.
I want to talk about a guy who's fast twitch. Aspinall's one of the fastest heavyweights. He might be the fastest heavyweight in the history of the sport.
Jon Jones, widely regarded as one of the all-time greats, needs no introduction. The big question is, how will he handle a 6'5" athletic heavyweight like Aspinall, who's right in the middle of his prime? It's the classic storyline. The legendary veteran returns for one last challenge, facing off against a rising star who genuinely believes he's the future. Realistically, though, this showdown should have taken place a while ago. But for reasons still unclear, it remains just a fantasy.
Because Jon Jones doesn't want to fight him, then I'm sorry, this is really going to tarnish his legacy.
At this stage, the situation is starting to shape Aspinall's career, and not in a positive way. Jon's run at heavyweight has been strange, to say the least. After a layoff of over 3 years, he returned, and was immediately granted a shot at the vacant title in his divisional debut, facing Cyril Gane. Many saw it as a favorable matchup for Jon, especially given his wrestling prowess, considering Gane had recently been out-grappled by Francis Ngannou.
It's interesting to hear Cyril say that it was a strength issue. I spend a lot of time in the weight room. I feel like not only am I a very strong athlete right now, but I have a lot of technique. It's more than strength. So it just makes me feel even better that he believes that it was strength that got him to the floor. I'm coming with a lot of strength, a lot of endurance, and most importantly, some pretty strong technique.
Since that win back in March 2023, Jones has only defended the belt once in more than 2 years. And even with an active interim champion in Tom Aspinall, Jones chose to fight Stipe Miocic instead. It was a surprising decision by the UFC, one they framed as a legacy matchup, highlighting Stipe's status as arguably the greatest heavyweight in MMA history.
Should be stripped of the title, to be honest, because everyone else does when they get injured like that. I don't see why he's still got it. I don't understand that. I think I should be the real champion right now. And it's hard to say without sounding rude, but who's asked about Jon Jones and Stipe anymore? Like, why do we get this legacy fight and they get to live by their own rules? What's a legacy fight? What's a retirement fight for a title?
The truth is, Stipe was 42 years old and hadn't secured a win in over 4 years. Meanwhile, during that same stretch, Aspinall captured the interim heavyweight belt and even managed to defend it. Logically, the situation doesn't add up, especially since both fighters defended their respective titles within just 4 months of each other. In any other division, at any other time, if a champion refused to face the interim title holder, Dana White would have likely stripped the belt, promoted the interim champ to undisputed, and kept the division moving. But with Jon Jones, it seems like the usual rules don't apply, almost as if the UFC is giving him special treatment.
You know, the way I look at it, I'm the best heavyweight in the world, and I'm not getting my credit for it. They're holding the belt hostage, mate, and Jon Jones is loving it. He's loving the fact that Dana White's getting on every interview possible. Friggin' hell, you talk about something, you're talking about bantamweights, and Dana White flips it back and starts talking about how good Jon Jones is. I'm like, mate, if he's that good, let's fight. Like, I'm the #1 heavyweight in the world right now. Let's put it on the line and let's see who the man.
Maybe it's Dana's admiration for Jon Jones as the sport's greatest fighter, or his belief that if this fight finally happens, it will be massive. Either way, Tom Aspinall has now become the longest-serving interim champion in UFC history, a record he's far from proud of.
Yeah, it's a lot of that is bull, innit? That is not something that I wanted. No, it's not something that I'm not that proud of that one, to be honest. The interim title's nice, but the longest reigning one, I obviously wanted to contend for the undisputed in the time that I've been interim. So
What's really strange is how quiet Jon Jones has been about Tom Aspinall. He rarely acknowledges him and often completely avoids mentioning him altogether.
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right.
Good, man.
Good.
Have a seat, sir. Tell us.
Hey, I'm not gonna do this every. You don't want to do it? No, because it's gonna be an Aspinall fest. I'm not gonna.
Jon isn't injured, and as far as we know, he's not retiring. So from a fan's perspective, there's no reason this fight shouldn't be happening right now. Some even speculate that Jon might be hesitating or unsure about taking the fight.
When I fought Jones the first time, I was 36 years old. When we fought the second time, I was 38, about to go 39 years old. Like, we were up in age when how old were you when you fought Jones?
Yeah, 30, 38.
Yeah, we were old. He was a young guy, 27.
Yep.
Now it's like he's on the opposite end of that, and like there's some worry when you look in the mirror and look at a 38-year-old man opposed to that 27-year-old kid that he was before, and recognize that Tom Aspinall is dangerous.
And it's definitely not because Aspinall hasn't been putting in the effort.
Because there is nowhere that you can find publicly, nowhere, him saying that he will fight me. It doesn't exist. I challenge anybody watching this interview to go and find a statement, a quote, a video where Jon Jones is saying that he'll fight me after he's fought Stipe.
He's made respectful calls out, challenged Jon's ego, and even sparked a meme culture around the idea of Jon dodging him. But whenever Jon has mentioned Tom, it's usually just to downplay him. After defeating Stipe, Jon even pushed for a different opponent instead of facing Aspinall.
I'm not really worried about the Tom fight. I'm really worried about the Pereira fight. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. And I think if the UFC wants to have me back, then I think that's the fight they'll make. I've been really clear about my intentions. That's what I want.
Jon's issue seems to be Tom's so-called lack of a legacy. But with Jon stalling the heavyweight division, Aspinall can't really grow his own star power as the interim champ. He's stuck fighting whoever's available, while Jones holds all the leverage. I'm willing to bet the delay is mostly because Jon's negotiating a massive payday with the UFC.
When you put him in with, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet, but I'm literally the most dangerous guy in the UFC if you look at the stats. When you put him in with a guy of my size who has them credentials at this stage in his career, I think Jon's a smart guy and he realizes that, so he wants compensating financially for it.
After all, this could very well be Jon's final fight, a huge payday paired with a big risk he doesn't necessarily have to take. He could retire as one of the greatest whenever he chooses. Sure, some critics might claim he's dodging Aspinall, but his record speaks volumes. Still, if you were on Jon's team, you'd want this fight to happen sooner rather than later. Jones is edging closer to 40, while Aspinall is right in the prime of his career. That's what's frustrating UFC fans the most. These lengthy negotiations risk robbing us of seeing an active peak Aspinall in action. It's even reached the point where Tom himself is fed up and ready to move forward.
And how does it feel that you constantly have to address this topic?
Oh, I'm well bored of it. I've had enough. We either need to fight or I need to move on and do something else.
Between 2019 and 2023, Aspinall fought twice a year without fail. Even after a serious knee injury, he still managed to step into the octagon twice during his recovery. But ever since the whole Jon Jones situation came into play, his activity has dropped drastically. Aside from winning the interim title in mid-2024, there's been almost nothing. And now, halfway through 2025, the wait continues. At 32, Tom isn't naive. He knows he's entering the latter stage of his career.
I think I've been pretty open with my fighting career. Like, I want to be done sooner rather than later. Yeah. I would rather be a couple too early than a couple too late, because now we get into the realm, and I don't want to sit on the podcast and name drop anybody who's struggling at the moment. But there's a couple of peers who are like the generation above me, who I'm close friends with now. And those guys are struggling.
Yeah, it's like you should have called it.
Yeah, like physically.
He doesn't want to overstay his welcome, and doesn't seem like the kind of fighter who'd stick around just for a few extra paydays. Tom would rather retire while he's still at the top. Sure, heavyweights often compete, well into their late 30s and beyond, unlike lighter weight classes. But realistically, Aspinall might only have 4 or 5 years left in his career, and almost the last 2 years have been overshadowed by the waiting game with Jon Jones, something nobody wants defining their legacy.
Hold someone else's dreams back from becoming a reality, that is ducking. That is ducking, because there is a time-honored tradition in this business, in the sport, in combat sports, in fight sports, in sports period, that the whole thing has to move along. It's not about your story. Your story is great, and you're living your best life, great. Get rid of that belt.
There are some clear differences, but this story echoes the Michael Chandler saga with Conor McGregor. After coaching each other on The Ultimate Fighter, Chandler held out for a big payday that never materialized. He lost crucial years and money during the twilight of his career. Whether it was ring rust, age, or tough competition, Chandler hasn't won a fight since. We're not saying Aspinall's path will end the same way, but whether he faces Jones or not, and whether he wins or loses, he's already lost valuable time during his prime. For most fighters, the window where experience, skill, and athleticism all line up perfectly is very short. MMA moves at lightning speed. Just look at fighters like Kamaru Usman, Henry Cejudo, and Israel Adesanya. They have a few years where everything clicks, and they seem unstoppable. Then suddenly, in what feels like the blink of an eye, they're dethroned, hit a losing streak, and people start questioning their greatness. That's exactly where Tom Aspinall stands today. He should be defending his title repeatedly, breaking records like Stipes, and cementing himself as the greatest heavyweight ever. He should be headlining major pay-per-views, cashing in on a lifetime of hard work, and growing his star even more. But Jon Jones isn't giving him that opportunity.
When you tell the full story of Jon Jones, and Lord knows there'll be a lot of chapters, some incredible highs and some incredible lows, if you don't end it on, there was one fight left and he didn't take it. But I get it. You lose that fight, and now you ended your career on a loss.
I'm pretty sure they'll eventually face off, and without a doubt, it'll be the biggest fight of the year. But no matter the result, Jones has already cost Aspinall a significant amount of time, momentum, and energy, things he can never recover.